Hello, Green Spring. We're back in the studio, and with me is Peggy Keller. Good morning,
Hello,
Peggy.
Elke.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
You are a director in residence, I think is the new title.
Director living in community.
Excuse me, Director living in community. Yes, I
got
know that you're
fancier.
living in community because I've known you for a while to live here.
Yes.
And you've been a director now for a few months, right? Since June?
I started June 1st.
Yes. And that means you are a director on the board of directors that governs the nonprofit that is Green Spring.
Yes. So there are two boards of directors. One is the Green Spring Board of Directors, which everyone has a resident on it. And then the larger group is the National Senior Campuses Board of Directors. And
National Senior Campuses.
And that's the largest nonprofit board for continuing care in the country.
That's beyond Erickson.
Beyond Erickson. They oversee
Yeah.
Erickson.
Yeah.
Yes. So that part is a little confusing. But
Well, let's
but
stick
it's
just
nice,
with the Green
yeah,
Spring
it's
board
nice
for
that
now.
we have our own board that sets policies and make sure that things are going well here, and
Yeah,
especially
that's what I
with
wanted
the
to
residents.
ask. What exactly does the board do, and how do we as regular residents know that you're actually doing that?
Okay.
Because it's kind of removed.
Right. Well, I have a couple slides because we're going to do a frequently asked questions. So if we could put up the first slide, we'll start from the top. How's that? So in this picture, you can see that we're going to talk about the objectives today, and those relate to the legs of the three-legged stool. So what I like to do in this kind of a situation is I think of the seat as being the vision of the board, the mission of the board, and the goals. And if anyone read my article in July for The Villager, I went through what the vision is. It's basically a three-pronged piece. The mission, I would say in a nutshell, is making sure that we have an affordable living situation for middle-class people. So that would probably be, again, a nutshell vision. And then within the board and within Erickson Living, we have goals that are set out. So on the slide, you'll see that the three legs represent the three parts that we are focusing on. So we want high performance teams, which is definitely our staff. We want to be able to have financial strength and growth in that area. And then the last and the most important is we want exceptional resident experiences.
And of course, the resident experiences relates to the performance of the staff.
Yes.
Quite
Yes,
closely.
that's right.
Now, how does the board get their information? They get some from you, but they can't get everything only through you.
Okay.
So
well,
how are people who are far away, how do they know how happy we are or how...
Okay, that's a good question, right? We have, within each board, there is a Community Relations Committee, or you've heard the term CRC.
Yes.
So Jackson Bain is an independent board member, no conflict of interest with Green Spring, and he's our chair. Eileen Erstad, again, is an independent board member.
Right.
Connected now to the Green Spring CRC and me.
Yeah.
So the three of us are funneling information to each other. And many times I'm giving them heads up. For example, when the outbreak just happened with upper respiratory, when it hit the news that night and I knew about it, I made sure that Jackson and Eileen knew about it because I didn't want them, first of all, to be surprised, and I also wanted them to know that there's something pretty serious going on here.
Right.
So then they stepped in, and then they get information also from Chandra Kumar.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the hands-on as far as what's really going on here. The CRC comes 4 times a year.
Yeah.
So they're due in September. We're going to go over the CapEx or capital expense proposals that are put in by the staff and by the resident council. They come in December then and have a town hall for all of the residents.
Yes.
And in that session, they talk about what the proposed budget is going to be and what the fee increase is going to be for the residents. They come again in February, and again, most of the time, that's just with the resident council and then separately with the executive leadership team. And then in May, they have another town hall with the residents, and that recaps the previous year. So it recaps the finances of the previous year, it recaps what the council has done in the previous year, and some of the significant events.
So in order for board members who are not here, which is everybody but you,
Right.
To get a realistic picture maybe and a varied picture from different, would you say that residents have to feed their information A through you and B through the resident council? Or how do we get our information from here to there?
Okay.
Because I'm sure that Jackson Baines, was that the name?
Yes.
That he doesn't want 3,000 emails
No,
from all
that's
of us.
for sure. And we have to think about the board being an oversight governance organization where the hands-on people are the council.
Yeah.
The residents go to the council with their concerns
Right,
or
that was
to a
right.
specific department with their work orders and that kind of thing, and then the staff.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we're hands-off.
Uh-huh.
If a resident comes to me with a complaint, I'm going to try to tactfully direct that person to the council or the appropriate source.
Yes.
So very different from when you're on the council and having just got off there.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're one that, you know, people can come and filter things through.
Yeah, so that's
So-
the avenue for residents.
Yes, and so for the board, they're trying to find out what's going on in the overall senior care community. That's one of their primary things, because not only are they setting policy, but they're setting direction.
Yeah.
And so we have several committees, and most of the time the board members who are on the committees have expertise in a particular area. For example, one of the newest is diversity and inclusion. So we have people that are dedicated to finding out what's going on in the senior community in that area. And then what are some ways that we can incorporate that into our communities? A new one is communication. That's actually just starting.
Really?
Yes, and
That's
Jackson
new?
Bain is the head of that. And what they did was, prior to that, they had a vision committee, and that was with
Yeah.
National Senior Campuses. So they spent 5 years
I see.
really studying, where do we want to go? Where do we see our communities going?
And so that's studied in a much larger context.
Yes, and the resident council then would get annual booklets of that vision, and then they felt like that it had run its course for now, and so now they're working in the area of communication. And honestly, I can't define what that committee is doing yet because they're that new.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who elects this board?
The board is chosen by members of the board.
So it's not elected.
Right. So you're appointed
Yeah.
by members of the board. So, and the board has been going since, let's see, Oakcrest was their first community,
Yeah,
Oakcrest Village.
right.
So that would have been in, I believe, the 80s. And then Oakcrest sponsored Greenspring Village and Riderwood Village. And that's how we got our start. And the board then took us as part of their responsibility. And then obviously it's grown over the years so
Yeah.
that there are now 16 communities.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And so it's self-perpetuating in a way.
it is. And so
Yeah.
when there's a vacancy, let's say someone literally retires from
Yeah.
the board or realizes that, you know, they have to move on to other things in their career, then there's the replacement process. And that's similar to what happened here when Roy decided that he would no longer be on the board.
Yeah.
Then they had opening and we got job descriptions and that kind of thing and went through a process with our CRC, who then relayed their choice up to the national senior campuses. And that was then approved, background checks were done, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Now, I think one thing, Elke, that would be interesting is we have a slide on the difference between governance and management. And
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
That might be
You
very
said
helpful. So
that you said direction.
yes.
So does that mean direction to
It means
that staff?
these are examples of what our board does on the left, the Greenspring board, and then what management, Chandra Kumar and her executive leadership team does on the right. So policies is a very typical one. We establish the policies. For example, we have set policies for how the budget will operate. And then Greenspring carries those policies out. Mm-hmm. So they have nothing to do with setting the policy, but they have everything to do with carrying it out. The second is, we're in this process now, the approval of the budget. So now we're starting to look at what's going on as far as our expenses go. And so once then the management team submits the budget for this 2020 year, we look at it, we look at all the finances, we look at the needs, we look at the narrative that they give us, and then we go ahead and approve that budget. And part of that approval process is deciding what the fee increase will be for the next year.
And sorry to interrupt,
that's okay.
But I had asked you before the show around the budget.
Yes.
What people tell me and what I pick up in the hall.
Right.
You know, it's the question about the repositioning and all that money.
And we're going to do that in a minute.
Okay.
Because we
have about 2 minutes left.
Okay. Well, if we can put the policy governance slide back up. So then the board hires the director, and then the director hires all of her staff.
Yeah.
And then we do a strategic plans, and then we oversee finances, and again, the Erickson Living carries those things out. Now the next slide is another one that I get a lot of questions on too. So people are concerned that this repositioning is going to cause our monthly fees to skyrocket. And I just want to assure people that any capital expenses or repositioning comes out of a reserve fund that we're diligent about maintaining. So our fees are basically the operating expenses of Erickson. Mm-hmm. So it's the heat and light, it's the wages, it's the benefits, it's
security.
The vehicles, security, those kinds of things. And
that's what nonprofits do, right?
Yes. Yes.
Filter the money back in.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have to.
Right.
By virtue of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And so our main drivers for fee increases are wages. Number one, we want to make sure we stay competitive. We want to make sure that our employees get a cost of living increase. Our insurances, benefits, that kind of thing. Now our benefit package right now is pretty stable. Mm-hmm. The other thing that drives up the cost would be real estate taxes, and we're waiting to hear if we're going to have any increase in that area. And then the other thing would be any kind of contractors. If let's say a contractor was ending their session and being re-upped, if there was an increase in the contractors. Mm-hmm. So those are basically the four drivers. And anyone that wants to see what our financial statements looks like is welcome to go into the administrative office. We have our audited financial statements. They're public. They're on public record. You can get copies of them, and again, they have them, it's categorically, it's not the detail of how much did we pay the power company, for example, but they'll be able to see that we're in very good financial straits.
Yeah, that's what we always hear.
Yes.
I'm sorry I have to cut you off here. We should have
okay.
had a whole 30-minute show. There's so much more I want to ask you, and
We'll
so much
do it in
more
October.
You'll just come back.